Hi, welcome back to the channel. Well, we've got a very cool car for you today. We're going to look at some builds, we're going to see how it drives, and we're going to work out, is it worth your cash? In game, it's the Declasse Impaler, and it's based very heavily on the 1967 Chevy Impala. And I built mine to look pretty much like the SS or Supersport model you see in the photos. And a bit later in the video, we'll have a look at another very cool, very different build. For this model year, Chevrolet slightly abandoned some of the slab-sided looks, and they gave this car what they called a Coke bottle styling, these curves, and I think this makes it one of the nicest looking Impalas ever made. Only a few years later it's back to the straight lines again. It costs approximately $331,000, or you can get it through the arena if you've got the appropriate trade price for $250,000, and that's because it's also the basis for an arena car if that's the way you wish to go. This car wasn't built just as a coupe but also as a sedan, and if you've ever watched the long-running TV show Supernatural, then you've already seen the sedan because that is what Dean Winchester drove. It was a 1967 again, and despite its enormous size, it was called Baby. I really like this build I've done on the car. It's very simple, but it just makes a very cool, clean Impala SS. But you might want to do a number of other things with this car, and the good news is that you can. So we're going to go to my auto shop, look at one or two options available on the car, mainly the liveries, and then another build. There's quite a few bumpers etc. available. And there's also these hoods here, some of which are actually quite good if you want to do a drag build. There are wheelie bars, the suspension can go very low, and now if you look at these liveries you can see that they're really targeting either lowrider builds on the car or, of course, drag racing builds on the car, especially with the sort of period competition liveries on these last three here. And then if we have a quick look over at the spoilers, you will see that the last option is a drag spoiler. So again, maybe we should also try a drag build on the car. And luckily for you, I have. Just before we get to see it, here is the full build for the Impala you've just seen. Not much to change. Here is the build of the Impala you're going to see. You can screenshot these, but I will also host them on my Discord for download as a PDF. Well, here she is, dressed up as a period dragster. The cream paint and the fix-up livery I thought worked fantastically together, along with some of the other options that we've talked about. I think this looks really good, and it was actually quite a hard moment to put it back to the car I intended to use for my garage collection, to be honest, because I really like looking at this one. The only customising downside is there's no interior options, for example roll cages here, or weird and wonderful interiors for a lowrider build. I think we should see it in action. Well, not hugely impressive, but a bit of fun. The car has very soft suspension. It's quite roly-poly, which is how I imagine that the real car from the 60s would have been. And you could see it on the initial drive, you can see it here on track. It does have one good point, which is as you go over the pavements, the suspension is so soft it's not really affected. It does, however, overall make the car more difficult to drive, and I did 5 laps, and this is not only my best one, but it is in fact the only one where I didn't crash the car. I lapped in 1 minute and 5 on this, which is 3 seconds quicker than a stage 4 tuned Buccaneer or Prairie did, for example, so it has actually got a reasonable turn of speed, but it's in no way a fast car. I don't believe that you buy this sort of car specifically for racing anyway, or even particularly for hard driving around the streets. It's a cruiser or a lowrider, or maybe just a static exhibit. So let's move on to the final summary. In a game where you can spend $2 million on just a Mini and then have it taken off sale, in a game where you can spend $750,000 on a car or bike like the Electro and find there's no visual customization at all, I think to be able to spend $250,000 and have all this customization, all the different versions of car you can make, and have a car which, in most respects at least, is a very recognisable version of a very classic and very attractive car. I think it's fantastic. It's no driver's car as we've discussed, however, I feel it's at least very close to the original car with the amount of soft suspension and body roll that it actually has. In summary, I highly recommend this car. I think it really is worth the money. This review was requested, and I far prefer doing a request to just picking my own list of favourite cars, so if there's anything you'd like me to review, please do say so down below, and of course if you enjoyed this review I would really appreciate a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching this video today. We're going to leave my character to do one thing I would most definitely be doing if this was my car.